SNCC, was birthed from these meetings and Baker's mentorship. SNCC was one of the civil rights movement's most successful organizations through its sit-ins, jail no bail, and freedom bus rides. Via SNCC, Ella Baker also mentored some of the movement's most successful organizers, including John Lewis, Julian Bond, and Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture. More than working with these organizations, Ella Baker was focused on working with disenfranchised peoples. She did not care about recognition or for attaining the limelight in the ways that some other movement leaders sought. She believed in participatory democracy, the idea that the movement belongs to the people, not a person. She said, quote, "Give people light and they will find a way." Ella Baker passed away on her birthday, December 13th, in 1986. She is fondly remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Next month, South Carolina will celebrate Confederate Memorial Day as part of Confederate History Month, which is celebrated by 6 other states across the nation. This is a legal state holiday in South Carolina. There are additional holidays around the country in honor of Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, and Stonewall Jackson. I bring your attention to these holidays to emphasize the ways in which various states across this nation honor the Confederacy and those who defended plantation slavery, while at the same time failed to honor the contributions of people of color and specifically women of color. In a couple of states, there are activities to honor women of color such as Rosa Parks and Daisy Gatson Bates, but overall, there is little recognition for women or women of color specifically. Therefore, we call for a day in honor of Ella Baker. Not only will this bring much needed attention to the contributions of women and women of color, it will also recognize Baker as one of the nation's greatest activists who worked tirelessly to better the living conditions and opportunities for those less fortunate. If you would like to sign the petition to support Ella Baker Day in South Carolina, go to supportellabakerday.com and click on Sign the Petition and follow the instructions for signing the proclamation to create an Ella Baker Day in South Carolina. Ella Baker's legacy is an important one to keep alive as it reminds us to honor the respect and dignity of all individuals. She believed the movement was an important force, not just for the freedom of Black people, but for all people. Baker said, quote, "Even if segregation is gone, we will still need to be free. We will still have to see that everyone has a job. Even if we can all vote, but if peoples are still hungry, we will not be free. Singing alone is not enough. We need schools and learning. Remember, we are not fighting for the freedom of the Negro alone, but for the freedom of the human spirit, a larger freedom that encompasses all of mankind." So to honor the spirit and keep Baker's legacy alive, we gather today for the 10th anniversary of the annual Ella Baker Day celebration. And now I introduce CCU student, SJRI intern, Caitlin Poore, who will present tonight's keynote panelist.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Poore. I am a social justice research initiative intern. I'm currently majoring in sociology here at CCU with a concentration in social justice. And I also am pursuing a double minor in criminal justice and political science here. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2023 Ella Baker Day keynote event, The Road to Abolition, Dismantling the Prison Industrial Complex One Step at a Time. Our panelists for tonight include Powell, founder and CEO of Fyrebird Recovery. Fyrebird Recovery provides resources, education, and advocacy to those living with substance use and co-occurring disorders right here in Horry County. Next, we have Jasmine Tasaki, Director of Advocacy at Black and Pink. Black and Pink is a US-based prison abolitionist organization supporting LGBTQ and HIV-positive prisoners. The group organizes a pen pal program, distributes a prisoner-written newspaper to its incarcerated members, provides court companionment, and educates people on their rights. Next, we have Alex Camacho, Building Project Manager at Critical Resistance. Critical Resistance has promoted the idea of abolishing the prison system from its first conference in 1998. It considers the prison industrial complex to be a response to societal issues such as homelessness, immigration, and gender nonconformity. Since 1998, it has taken part in numerous campaigns and projects to oppose prison building and promote prisoner rights. Next, we have Azadeh Shahshahani, Legal and Advocacy Director of Project South. Project South was founded at the Institute of Eliminate Poverty and Genocide, in 1986. Their work is rooted in the legacy of the Southern Freedom Movement with the mission of cultivating strong social movements in the South, powerful enough to contend with some of the most pressing and complicated social, economic, and political problems we face today. And lastly, but not least, we have Dr. Jennifer Schlosser. She's the director of the Incarcerated Voice program and the Free Horry County Bail Fund. The Incarcerated Voice is a hub for community partners in the criminal justice system to pair with campus leaders to provide educational opportunities and resources for incarcerated individuals. The FREE Horry County Bail Fund's mission is in its name: funding, release, empowering, equity. By raising money for bail, they help fund the release of people incarcerated pre-trial so they can return to their jobs, homes, and families. Next, we will have each panelist take about 5 to 7 minutes to tell us more about what they do, and then we can open the floor to questions. Feel free to place your questions in the chat box on Zoom at any time. The discussion will be moderated by Dr. Danny Malone. Thank you.
All right, so I'll let the panelists decide who want to go first, and then we just run through everybody's collective 5 minutes.
How about we just go in the order we were called? I think I was second.
Go for it.
Okay, I think I was first. So my name is Azadeh. I am the founder of Fyrebird Recovery in Horry County. In services that we provide, we are a harm reduction nonprofit, and within that, we are the only syringe program in Horry County and one of 2 in the state of South Carolina. So within that program, we provide safe use equipment, not just for opiates, but also for safe smoking and snorting supplies. We provide overdose equipment such as Narcan, naloxone, intramuscular, and nasal. We also provide safe sex education and equipment as well. And the most importantly, resources to at-need services. We advocate within different coalitions of South Carolina. I'm the co-chairman of the state South Carolina Harm Reduction, and then our local Horry County, to where we are the voice for drug user health. So the majority of our advocacy goes into getting harm reduction into primary care, connecting services, and really educating on what harm reduction means outside of syringe program. We also provide case management to people looking for linkage to care so that we're able to do warm handoffs. And also just a safe space, because we do now have a center here in Horry County. And our goal for our center is to provide a safe space for people who use drugs and have mental health to combat the criminalization of homelessness that is we are currently facing in Horry County. So with that, we do work with our public safety partners to kind of open the door to harm reduction. So we do community take back events, we do community cleanups, which allows for us to kind of not be in the shadows, because syringe program has been very hush, especially in the South. So our goal is to not be in the shadows, but in the limelight. And one of the biggest programs that we launched this year is our drug user union, which is allowing a voice for people who are in active use. So our drug user union hosts CPR trainings for people in active use, Narcan trainings, and then we also give education on drug trends so that people are aware of fentanyl testing strips, xylazine, warnings, and all of that within the county as well.
Hello, everybody. I am Jasmine Tasaki. I am the Director of Advocacy at Black and Pink. Black and Pink is an abolitionist organization that we help people who are currently incarcerated or newly re-entering society from the LGBTQIA community. We also assist people who are living with HIV. Our services include a newsletter, pen pal programs. We also have chapters that help with like direct service needs, such as light bills or money to get apartments. That's done through the chapters. We do have what's called Light in House in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's for people who are newly re-entering society. It's a house that people can live. They don't have to worry about rent. They don't have to worry about feeding themselves. We give them money to decorate their room. There's no limit on how long they can be there. We try to help them come up with strategies that are harm reduction focused in principle, but strategized by the participant themselves in a way that they see is healthy for their future, not what we see. And we also have Opportunity Campus, which is in Omaha, Nebraska. We are still building Opportunity Campus, but it will be a youth center where youth can live, learn, and work who are system impacted or HIV impacted. We also have like a programs department that does somewhat of case management for the people that live in the Lighting House and work with them all the time. We have a mental health department. And yeah, we also, one of the projects that I am over is called the Sex Worker Liberation Project, where we created a network of sex workers from all across the country, from Black to white, gender nonconforming, trans masculine, trans feminine, and cisgender people all on one cohort, raising awareness and also just learning how to be better at the business of sex work and also how to be better in community organizing, right? So our cohort put together a toolkit that guides you on how to vet the proper healthcare providers to make sure that they're sex work friendly and trans friendly. And they also have safety guides that they put in the toolkit around the buddy system. And we also have a way to report a bad date list. So it's really layers and layers of work that we do at Black and Pink. I'm going to be quick, but I also want to slide in there. I'm also the founder and executive director of We Care Tennessee in Memphis, Tennessee. And we are a harm reduction focused organization that specifically supports Black transgender women who do sex work and uses drugs. All of our programs are led by active users and sex workers. For sex workers, we do things like address the social determinants of health as an HIV prevention method. We also have all kind of healing justice and harm reduction focus programs that really allow people to dive into who they are and their reasons for use and their reasons for HIV prevention versus saying that they're at risk. We're just trying to provide a safe space where people can feel good about themselves and exercise their birthright, which is their bodily autonomy, and make strategies for themselves that are safe and conducive to their futures. Once again, I'm Jasmine Tasaki. Thank you so much.
Was it
I
me?
think Alex was next.
Oh,
Thank you. Appreciate that, Jasmine. I blanked out. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns. It's truly an honor to be on this panel, and I'm so excited to learn from all of you, and so excited to be around the students and faculty and have been invited here. I did prepare a couple slides, and would that be okay if I shared them to visually follow along with talking about critical resistance work?
Go for it.
Thanks. And I have a timer here, so I promise I won't go over 7 minutes. But I think it would be helpful to have this kind of visual cues for folks because we offer a lot of defining terms and a few different things. So appreciate it. Right. Oh, looks like the host has disabled screen sharing. Would that be something that's? I apologize for the late notice on this.
Dr. Perkins, let me see if we can change that.
If not, it's totally fine. Great. Thanks, everyone. All right, so getting right into it. I am representing Critical Resistance, and Critical Resistance is a national grassroots organization. We're a political organization focusing on campaigns to dismantle and abolish the prison industrial complex. As the introduction stated, we started in a conference in 1998 in Berkeley and decided to form an organization shortly thereafter. We have 4 chapters in Oakland, Portland, New York City, and Los Angeles. And we have several at-large members who are in various parts of the country. And right now we have a member in Atlanta, actually, would probably be the closest member to you all. And yeah, here's our little mission right here. It's a Critical Resistance seeks to build an international movement to end the prison industrial complex by challenging the belief that caging and controlling people makes us safe. We believe that basic necessities such as food, shelter, and freedom are what really make our communities secure. As such, our work is part of a global struggle against inequality and powerlessness. The success of the movement requires that it reflects the communities most affected by the PIC. Because we seek to abolish the PIC, we cannot support any work that extends its life or scope. Some grounding terms that might be helpful for this conversation, as CR defines them. The prison industrial complex, we describe it as kind of overlapping interests of government and industry that use surveillance, policing, and imprisonment as solutions to economic, social, and political problems. And we consider PIC abolition as a political vision with a goal of eliminating imprisonment, policing, and surveillance, and creating lasting alternatives to punishment and imprisonment. I like the visual of a kind of horizon, right? Because abolition is both a practical organizing tool and a long-term goal. So, you know, the police-free world, you know, it's a you know, kind of a seemingly unattainable sometimes horizon, but abolition really lays out the path for us to get there. So I do appreciate the kind of horizon with the road leading to it as a visual for us. Our theory of change, or our framework for abolitionist change that we use, is dismantle, change, and build. So we always want to see these 3 things happening in tandem. We don't consider them as sequential steps, like we're not going to dismantle first, then change, then build. We'd like to see all of these happening, co-occurring. So we want to be dismantling oppressive and punitive systems through campaigns and organizing. We want to be changing the conditions for folks and also changing common sense through media, through advocacy. And we also want to be simultaneously building the world we want to see, and which a lot of folks I see here are doing that today. Another one of our methodologies is a shrink and starve, or kind of chip away method, because as you all might know, a lot of the reforms and policies that we've been offered, you know, over the past 20 or more years, ended up kind of extending the power and reach of policing and surveillance and imprisonment. So we want to be focusing on solutions and policies and reforms that chip away the power of prosecuting, that chip away the power of caging folks. And we have numerous tools that we've developed over the decades and through numerous struggles that help us kind of identify, hey, if we're organizing and creating demands, is this actually going to set us up for more problems down the line, or is it actually going to be a way for policing and incarceration to enter our homes? So I'll link more of these later as well. And this is kind of my project that I'm working on. I'm the building project manager here in Oakland for a new space that we have been lucky enough to be building out in North Oakland. Building People Power aims to create a long-term sustainable center for political organizing and education and cultural work. It's really exciting to hear that other folks in the panel have also been given spaces, and we're very excited to kind of have a full-time home for our organizing, a way to engage with the community. And like many other places, North Oakland is been heavily gentrified over the past decade or more, and we're very conscious of that. And so we really want to honor the neighborhood's legacy, be good neighbors to both the housed and unhoused folks in the neighborhood. And we also want the building to reflect our our organizing. We want it to be a place for us to move our campaigns forward. Although it hasn't been open yet, we're still building it out. We were able to, over the pandemic, use the back lot for what we called Freedom Fridays, where we were able to uplift a lot of our ongoing campaigns, our movement partners, do letter writing to incarcerated folks. And so it really gave us a good taste of what the project is going to be and look like. And lastly, some ways to support, because this is in the prompt. For you all, I think the closest campaign that we might be involved in is the Stop Cop City in Atlanta, which you may have heard of. And there are a few ways this weekend to engage in that campaign, and I'll link it in the chat as well. Critical Resistance is also having our 25th anniversary after the first 1998 conference on May 5th. And you can attend that virtually. So you can go ahead and RSVP during the event. Right, we have a great panel with Angela Davis, Andrea Ritchie, and Nine Horn. And I think in general, just use our resources. Our website has a ton of stuff. If look in your neighborhood and your locality, if there's a ongoing defund campaign or jail fight, join it up and apply these resources as much as you can. Reach out to us, and if there's not one, you can start one. Thanks so much. Looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Is it me now? I think it's me. Hi, I am Dr. Jennifer Schlosser. I'm an associate professor of sociology and criminology at Coastal Carolina University. I am the founder and director of the Incarcerated Voice Initiative at CCU, where VOICE stands for Visualizing Opportunities in Correctional Education. I am also the co-founder and director of the Free Horry County Bail Fund, where FREE stands for Funding, Release, Empowering Equity. And it literally took me longer to come up with those acronyms than anything else I've ever done. So, but they're working out, I think. So the first project that I started and worked on was the bail fund here. I've been doing work in prisons. I've been doing research on ways to help incarcerated people transition out of prison to be successful once they're released for 15 years. And so that's been the bulk of my career, is doing academic work that also translates into praxis. And so it's important for me to not just do the academic side of things, not just do the scholarly work that is necessary, but it's also really important for me to amplify the experiences of incarcerated people and formerly incarcerated people as well. So the bail fund was the first real project that I started working on, and that was a couple of years ago. It's really important to us at the bail fund to educate people about what first of all, it sounds kind of simple, but what the difference between jail and prison is. I think a lot of people don't know that there's a difference between those two things. And so that's one of our biggest areas, is educating people about what is jail versus prison, what is bail, and why is cash bail a problem. And so the difference between jail and prison is that prison is a place where you go after you've been sentenced and convicted. And jail is essentially a holding tank for people who have not yet been found guilty of a crime. And I think if people hear that jail literally is for people who who are incarcerated but have not yet been found guilty of a crime. These people are legally innocent. I think once people start to understand what that actually means, it kind of starts to sink in what a problem this is. And so the issue, of course, is that if you are wealthy enough, you can purchase your way out of incarceration before your trial. And if there's a bail amount set and you have the means to pay that bail, then you are able to be released and be home with your family, go back to your job, et cetera, until your court date. If you don't have the means for that, which the majority of people don't, then you are incarcerated while you are legally innocent. And so truly, it does come down to a matter of who can afford to buy their way out of jail. Both parties are innocent. It's just who has the most money. Now, there's all kinds of problems with bail in general. There's all kinds of problems with incarcerating people pre-trial in the first place. But because we have this system, it was important for us to create a way for individuals who couldn't afford to purchase their way out of jail to be able to find the resources that they need to do that. Because what happens when someone sits in jail before they've been found guilty of a crime, which on average is longer than a month, longer than 30 days, is within 30 days, if you don't show up to work, if you don't find a way for your children to be taken care of, if you aren't able to pay your rent, your entire life can spiral truly into such a devastating place in a matter of 30 days that it becomes extremely difficult to get out of that. And of course, we don't have enough resources to help individuals once that happens. And so right now we're a very modest bail fund. We don't have a lot of money. So one of the points that we were told to make is, how can you be of assistance? I'd like some money. If you are wealthy, please, even if you're not, I'll take $5 because every little bit matters. We have bailed out 5 people so far. So we're kind of new and we're kind of still getting off the ground, but it's 5 people who didn't have to sit in jail and who were able to go back to their families and continue to work and take care of what they need to do. And so it's been a really good learning experience for me. And I think it's a very important thing to educate people about. The second project that I am involved in is that I created the Incarcerated Voice Initiative at CCU. This stemmed from a class that I teach called the Jail Experience, where half of my students are campus-based and half are incarcerated. This may sound like what's called an Inside Out prison exchange class. It is not that. The Inside Out program has significant flaws that I recognized when I took their $3,000 training several years ago. It is exclusionary, it is elitist. And one of the big things that got me once I finished that Inside Out training was that instructors are not allowed to maintain contact with their incarcerated students once those students are released from prison. And to me, that's a real problem because I maintain contact with many of my students after they graduate and after they're out of my classes. And so I couldn't quite understand why that would only apply to the incarcerated people. So I said, I don't like that model, and thought, what can I do about that? And sort of forged a bit of a new way of doing things. And so at Coastal, it's taken a while. It's taken a good 3 years to be able to get the approvals from university, from the local detention center, and to be able to finally implement it, but it has worked. And so we have run 3 years worth of jail experience classes. They have gone extremely well. My big push at the end of those classes is that the students together as a group must come up with a final project that they as a group agree on and work on together. The second year we did it, the students created a website. It is thejailexperience.org. Please go there. Every word on that webpage was written by the students in that class. Every photo, every every line, every sentence, every link they created. So the jailexperience.org is a really cool way to see what the students have done and what they're up to. The Incarcerated Voice Initiative sprang out of that class and became a bigger initiative on campus. And so I wanted to be able to provide more educational opportunities from people who are currently incarcerated and who have been released, so that they have resources and access to resources once they're out. The GED programming in South Carolina prisons and jails is a joke. Truly, there are no resources for that, and it's very frustrating that individuals coming out of prison often come out without a GED. And so I wanted to provide pathways for that, and then pathways for them to go to college if they choose. The biggest thing for me throughout this entire project, besides just getting it off the ground and making sure that it's successful, has been to make sure that my incarcerated students who take a jail experience class earn college credit. At the vast majority of universities that offer a class where half the students are incarcerated and half are campus-based, the incarcerated students don't earn college credit for their successful participation in a 300 level college course. It is often made out to be about red tape and bureaucracy, and these are just our policies. Well, policies can change, and we can change them. And so I worked to make sure that that happened. It was a long road. It was tough, but I have a lot of support at Coastal, and I have some really amazing colleagues and people who I work for and with, who were able to help me make this change. And so we were able to successfully change the non-academic admissions requirements. And this past fall, the first cohort of 10 incarcerated individuals ever at Coastal Carolina University filled out applications, were accepted to Coastal, and received 3 hours of college credit for their participation in my class. And that has been our huge win. And so it's initiatives like that, things like that, that keep me going, and that I know it's just a small step in the right direction, but we're changing policies in ways that impact people's lives. And I think that's really important. I don't know how long that was, sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you all.
Wait, I
all the
think,
panelists.
excuse
Oh,
me, I think we missed
did we miss someone?
Project, our legal and advocacy director from Project South.
Yeah, I think I'm the last one.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. We get you.
No worries. No, I was the last one, so the order is right. Well, thank you all so much. So my name is Azadeh Shahshahani. I serve as legal and advocacy director at Project South. And I'm also the co-counsel on the class action lawsuit that was filed on behalf of survivors of medical abuse at the Irving County Detention Center in Georgia, which was a site of systematic medical abuse against migrant women. So Project South is a social justice organization based in Atlanta, working in support of grassroots organizations and Black, Brown, immigrant, undocumented, and Muslim communities in the US South. And we're also in solidarity and joint struggle with Black and Indigenous communities in the global South. So we work in various areas such as detention of migrants, trying to end local police collusion with ICE, defending and protecting Muslim and Middle Eastern communities against state surveillance and repression, and ensuring that undocumented folks have access to fundamental rights such as utilities and higher education. We are part of a movement that believes systemic state violence is not to be tolerated in any form, whether it is ICE caging and harming migrants or cops murdering Black people in the street with impunity. And we fight against the state criminalization of our communities. So we know that the expansion of the government surveillance powers in the name of counterterrorism has had devastating impacts on communities of color, and broad-based mobilization, safety, and accountability mechanisms that don't rely on incarceration as a solution are necessary to counter white supremacy and seeking justice for Black, Muslim immigrants and other communities who have been harmed. In terms of our work in solidarity and support with our comrades in the global South, with that focus on mass incarceration, just a couple examples. So we are part of a delegation, a National Lawyers Guild delegation to Palestine, a few years ago with a focus of Palestinian political prisoners. And it was extremely powerful. We produced a report when we came back, and I'm happy to talk more about our findings and how it's very much related to what is happening in the US, especially in light of US government role in support of the settler colonial system and Israeli apartheid. And also in relation to that, we are part of a movement to try to stop the city of Atlanta's participation in this police exchange program with Israel, where basically police from Atlanta is sent to Israel to learn the utmost tactics of repression of our communities, and then come back and implement those same tactics on communities of color in Atlanta. And of course, there's very much a relation to Cop City, and we need to delve deeper into what all that means for our communities, where repressive states are basically engaging in a practice of teaching each other the most advanced tactics of repression. Israel against Palestinians, and the city of Atlanta and other localities against communities of color. And then I did want to talk also a couple of minutes about detention. And what we saw happening at the Irving County Detention Center. So the shocking revelations about medical abuse against women's bodies further highlight the extent of the egregious abuses at the Irving County Detention Center. The fact that Black and brown migrant women were held in an extremely vulnerable position at this prison, where they had no control over their bodies and no say about what was done to them, is sickening. And it pains me to know that there could be many more women out there who will never be able to talk about what happened to them and the abuse that they suffered while at Irving, let alone receive a measure of redress while living with the lifelong damage to their bodies and spirits. And not surprisingly, ICE was not forthcoming with information. Rather, they actively tried to cover their own tracks through deporting survivors and witnesses to medical abuse. If it was not because of the documentation work happening, advocates' efforts to track down and reach out to women all over the world, and courage of the impacted women, none of this would have ever come to light. So ICE actually deported 6 women survivors already, and was in the process of deporting several more before lawyers and members of Congress have stepped in, and they also used tactics of retaliation. So in terms of updates on Irving, so pursuant to the class action lawsuit, all known survivors of medical abuse at Irving have now been released. As of September 2021, there are no migrants in ICE custody at Irving. However, women are now transferred to the Stewart Detention Center, which is a deadly corporate-run prison with a forced labor program and a documented track record of other egregious human rights violations. And this is an extremely troubling development and a clear attempt by ICE to deflect attention from abuses at Irving. There have been 9 deaths at Stewart since May 2017, 2 by suicide and 4 during the pandemic. In fact, the Stewart was the deadliest ICE prison during the pandemic. And the most recent death of a migrant at the Stewart Detention Center was just a couple weeks ago. The 61-year-old Salvador Vargas died at the Stewart Detention Center. So we need to shut this place down. Just lastly, in terms of accountability, what we need for accountability around Irving and also the Stewart Detention Center. So the scrutiny must not stop with examining the actions of one individual. This is about the ICE. This is about ICE and the private prison corporations that run these places. So Irving, as I said, there are no more migrants in ICE custody there, but it still continues to function as a jail. So both Irving and the Stewart Detention Center must be shut down immediately, and people should be freed. And the egregious retaliation against those who speak out must end. The women who suffered medical abuse should receive redress for the harm that they suffered, and the US government, as well as the private prison corporations running these prisons, must be held accountable. And also in terms of the bigger picture, obviously we need to shut all of these prisons down. As a first step, the Biden administration should mandate that ICE stop dealing with private prison corporations, the same mandate that they issued to the Department of Justice. We cannot entrust the care of human beings to private prison corporations, as their main interest is maximizing profit. and look forward to talking more with you all, but I would like to end this portion of the conversation by leaving you with this quote from Fannie Lou Hamer: "Nobody's free until everybody's free." Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you to each of the panelists. I know I've certainly learned a lot. Looks like now we can kind of move into facilitating discussion. Do have a couple of prompts which I can ask, and panelists, you can choose to answer it or not. And I'm sure we can also have questions from the audience. And so I'll start with the kind of first question. So you all have intimated that you do, great social justice work. And there's this idea of dismantling, but before dismantling, you begin with disruption of norms, disruption of policies that, impact the lives of many people. And so in doing that, you obviously are going to upset the systems and structures in place. So the question is, how do you address this tension in your own work as it pertains to the issue at hand?
I can go first. In relation to the work that I do, the biggest pushback that I've gotten in the beginning when I started this in 2020 and even now is definitely our syringe program and the attack that's really on drug user health. We would have a lot of barriers, and we still do have a lot of barriers when trying to provide resources and also trying to put in roots to our community. And two of the big ones that we have now is the distribution of Narcan and naloxone, and also just our city of Myrtle Beach not wanting us around. When we had the opportunity to open our center, we were told a lot of the ordinances that were not in place, but we were being pushed around, that we couldn't be here. We weren't a part of the community. We don't serve the community. And it's because it was, I don't want to see the issue, instead of working together to address. But I don't know if other states are aware, but I know our state opioid settlement funds have been the talk of the town here regarding harm reduction. And what we've noticed is that a lot of cities and counties have applied for this funding with the blanket of harm reduction, with no intent to actually help the people that is intended for. And we had a lot of options. We have a lot of partners who wish to partner with us silently. And I just decided that at Fyrebird that we won't be silent. So when we do events, we are very much open. I have my supplies open and people are very much engaged to come, because if I'm saying that this is a needed service and it's okay, then I can't support being in the shadows. So obviously that comes a lot of backlash. And obviously with outreach, we do street outreach, which brings a lot of police attention. So it was a decision, do we stop or do we keep pushing? So we decided to keep pushing and bring in those uncomfortable conversations that people are refusing to have. So I know for us, that is our main barrier here in Horry County.
Excuse me, y'all, for clearing my throat. So for me, I think there's a lot of tension in the work that I do, but I think, and I will say that syringe exchange is something that we've got pushback on. We've got pushback on our safe snorting kids. We've got pushback on our safe smoking kids. But I think that the biggest problem that I have is just people trusting the leadership of Black women, or people trusting the leadership of trans women in the space of like even abolition. When you come in to do the work alongside people that are supposed to be like-minded, you run into a situation where people don't trust your leadership because you're Black. And it's really hard to do that work because most of the people that we serve are either Black LGBTQIA identified, people living with HIV, or trans identified. Either way, they're a marginalized community. So you would think coming in from that community, people would trust your instincts, people would trust your guidance, people would trust what you say to be fact about even your own experience, right? But that's not often what happens. So how I push through that is I continue to do the work unapologetically. And I make sure that I bring myself to the work, even when people don't want me to. I bring my experience to the work because it helps me to center the needs of other people, right? Because I know I'm at a point where someone had to help me get to where I am today. And I'm a person that often is a part of the very demographic that I serve. So I would love to be that gasoline to the vehicle of someone's change. I believe in not being their change agent, but them being their own change agent, but just like giving them that fuel to do that. And yeah, it's pretty hard, but I think all I have done is push through. I can't say that I have the answers for that because it's all rooted in white supremacy, but you know, I really think that that's the hardest thing I have to do is to get people who are supposed to be like-minded individuals to trust the leadership of Black people.
Any other panelists?
I mean, I'll just say that the hardest part for me in both of the things that I work on is educating people about what it actually is. I think people have very visceral reactions when you tell them that you want to provide bail money so that people can get out of prison. And it takes, I mean, you know, one of the bigger issues, especially with bail, is when you've got police departments posting mugshots on their social media pages and making it a joke and doing funny things with like blotter pages. There was one, I think it was Horry County. Somebody, I know that I've got a million students on this Zoom right now, so one of you correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it was Horry County Sheriff's Office that did one for Valentine's Day, where was it? Okay. So they did one for Valentine's Day where they put you know, a flyer out with the mugshots of people that they were currently looking for, that they had warrants out for their arrest. And they made like jokes about, you know, you may not want to date this one because she runs away a lot. And it was truly disgusting to see the way that our government agencies treat the citizens that they work for. And these are all people who had not yet been convicted of a crime at all. And so until you're convicted of a crime, you're considered legally innocent. And so educating people, I think, is really the hardest part, because somebody sees that and they don't know what it really means, and they think that it's funny, and they think that it's okay because the sheriff's office posted it or the state government posted it or something like that. And so having to, I think, you know, explain these things gets exhausting sometimes, and you feel like you don't make a dent at all. And it's the same thing with providing educational opportunities for incarcerated people. Why, you know, I've heard all kinds of things about why that's a bad idea, but, you know, all you can do is really take the science and the research and the data and say, people who have been released from prison and have access to educational opportunities see a reduced recidivism rate. And it's just the facts. And sometimes that just really does wear on you and just become very tiring, I think, to have to do it, but we have to do it. I'm not going to change every mind in the world, and I don't need to. All I need to do are change policies and change structure and change the things that actually are in place to prevent people from receiving opportunities and from being released from jail while they're still innocent and things like that. So it's not about changing every mind, it's about changing the important things and what you can do. So it's important work, but it does take a lot sometimes, I think.
I can share, and thank you all for sharing so far. The city of Atlanta, where I live, puts itself forward as a welcoming place, and relatively progressive, which is of course laughable given everything we're saying right now in regards to Cop City. But even before all of this unfolded, for a number of years, the city of Atlanta had a contract with ICE where they basically rented jail space to ICE for purposes of detention of migrants. So this at the same time as they had this whole welcoming unit of the city of Atlanta. God knows how much money was spent on that. With a whole staff and all of that fanfare, and like the only thing that we could see this welcoming unit of the city of Atlanta was doing was hold soccer games once in a while, at the same time as the city was making millions of dollars of profit off of pain of migrant communities. So we had been part of a campaign for a long time to try to end the city of Atlanta, to shut down the jail altogether. And as a first step to end this contract with ICE. And so in the summer of 2018, the mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, I think was genuinely moved as a mother to see the family separations happening at the border. And so she put together this task force to advise her on the next steps in terms of what should happen with the jail. And I was on this task force. So I walk in my first meeting, I see that there are 2 ICE representatives. I'm sure everyone knows ICE, stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're on this council where, information, very sensitive information is being circulated with, names and information about undocumented immigrants. And I was really outraged, and much to my surprise, I was the only one who had a problem with this. But anyway, I was loud and I managed to kick them out after they were there for most of an entire meeting. They finally left. But then the actual task force, first of all, the head of the jail was on the task force. So the person whose job is being threatened if this jail is shut down is on the task force. And then the rest of the task force was the people who were on it represented a lot of corporate interest and sort of status quo people. And it was, very troubling to see what people were saying in terms of, well, we need to keep this place open because, well, it's a jail, but it's not too bad of a jail and things could be worse. And so as a lawyer, especially, it was very troubling for me to see, a lot of immigration lawyers saying that, well, this is a better place, probably because of their own self-interest, they had, easier access to our clients. We at the same time were documenting the experiences of detained migrants at the Atlanta City Detention Center. We actually came up with a system to ensure that not only, experiences of people are being represented through the report that we put out, but also the voices of directly impacted people were actually going to be represented because we pushed the city to allow formerly detained people to be able to call in. So then the next meeting, all these people from around the world called in and did not allow, the business and corporate people to get in a word edgewise. And then the third meeting, which was a public meeting, all of these formerly detained folks called in, and then the family members showed up, and the message was very clear: you all need to go ahead and shut this place down because our experience there was awful, and this is what you need to do. So then finally, this advisory council was moved to put forward this recommendation to the city to shut it down. And there was one person who abstained, but everybody else changed their vote. And so, it was truly phenomenal. And of course, a lot of people kept asking, okay, well, this place is gone, but then what about all these other detention centers? And the answer is, we're gonna fight until they're all shut down, right? But every victory must be celebrated. You know, every jail that we shut down, and every prison that we shut down, and every person that we release from the mass incarceration system is a victory that we must celebrate. And you know, I think it was also a boost to the movement as a whole. So when we were celebrating the fact that City of Atlanta finally ended this arrangement with ICE, people from New Jersey and different parts of the East Coast and the West Coast were tweeting at their mayors saying, okay, Atlanta was able to do this. What are you all doing? Why are jails still open here? And so I should say, again, our work is far from finished, right? I mean, Stewart is still open, and we're part of this broader coalition led by formerly incarcerated Black and trans women to try to shut down the city jail altogether. And so a lot of work to do. And of course, Cop City is a whole other story. And so, you gotta keep at it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for that. So speaking about the prison industrial complex, so my next question is dealing specifically with dismantling it. So what are your thoughts on strategies and tactics that focus on working within the system versus putting pressure on the system from the outside?
You can do both, I think. It's not ideal, but you got to work with what exists. I mean, I think absolutely can and should do both at the same time. I can't shut down any prison or jail or program or whatever by myself. I can't do that as an individual person, but I can mobilize people, I can educate people, I can work to change policy, I can work to get toward that goal of abolition. But as a single individual, I can't do it myself. As a single individual with power and privilege, because I'm a white woman with a PhD, I have a lot of access that I'm able to use and leverage in ways that I think are really important. People, I think, who have power and privilege have an obligation to use it to get into the spaces that typically shut out minorities and people that don't look like the people running things. And so I have an obligation to get in there because I'm able to. But if that means that we have to push for reform at the same time that we're pushing for abolition, I think that that's what we have to do. And I think that's what we can do and what we are doing. It may feel like it takes forever, and it does feel like that. It feels like sometimes you are not making any progress at all, but it's also really important to recognize your wins where you get them and to see that as just one more building block toward getting to that ultimate goal. And that's how we got to do it.
Yeah, you basically said a lot of what I was going to say. I think something that when it comes to me, I work with people who are willing to work for the people that I serve. I work with people who are interested in keeping the communities I serve safe. And also like realizing that sometimes some of the communities that I serve feel safest when they have involvement from police, and like really trying to, and I'll give you an example. So if a Black trans woman is attacked in the streets, she doesn't have her own community of Black people to stand behind her. The LGBTQIA community doesn't always stand behind her, but she does know she can call the police and that they have to come. That doesn't mean that it's going to be the best experience, but she will have someone to stand with her. And I think that when we think about how we can change things, we can change structures and policies the easiest, right? it's easy to change a structure or a policy. I mean, if we're working as a collective or even for organizations or institutions, it's easier for them to change their policy than it will be for them to change their power dynamics or their relationships with people. They would rather change their policy than actually address the power dynamics. And then under the power dynamics lies their mental modes, the way they view these situations. That's what's the hardest to change. They'll change their policies and structures before they change how they actually view people. So I think that we have to really, like you said, Dr. Jennifer, is to really work where we can and celebrate those small wins. And if we can get structural change, that's good when policies and practices change. But we need that structural change to really get to the relationships and the power dynamics of it all. And if we can get into those relationships and power dynamics and really discuss those, we can change some opinions of the people that really hold power in these positions. But I do think that it's necessary to work where you can. But I also think it's also necessary to equip the people you work with the truth, right? Of how you're working, why you're working, and just like what an ideal situation could look like or would look like versus what you're working with. I think when you're working with some of these different organizations or government affiliates, you have to be transparent, right, with the people who you serve so that they can understand what's going on. But yeah, I echo what you said, Jennifer.
Thanks. I can provide a few thoughts on this because I think that there is sometimes a misconception that abolitionists, because we, as introduced, would like the entire prison industrial complex abolished, that we don't engage in anything having to do with folks inside jails and prisons. But that's not the case. I think that for people living under these, harrowing conditions inside detention centers, jails, and prisons, of course, we would support any kind of policy or reform that would actually improve the livability while there still is cages for those inside those cages. But I think that we need to just be very skeptical and very careful about the prison industrial complex's ability to market itself, to co-opt social justice language, because we're seeing that left and right. I think it's remarkable to hear how similar the conditions are in Oakland as they are in Atlanta from the last speaker, because you get these, we're offered these reforms to remarket jails as mental health facilities, or massive expansions in jail budgets to make friendlier cages. So I think we just need to be very careful and aware of that. And we need to, while we're working within or from the outside against our targets, that we're recentering around the kind of chipping away piece, that what we're doing isn't going to actually add more legitimacy. We need to be delegitimizing policing and caging. And although we don't work with cops or prosecutors, there are numerous kind of new tools and practices to organize DAs, for instance, right? And district attorneys, for those who don't know, do have the ability in counties to prosecute and put people in jail, that they're the ultimate decision makers. So if we're organizing them, we need to be focusing on reducing their power and scope. So I think just recentering on that kind of chipping away aspect, and we should be clear about that. Critical resistance, whenever we're engaging in campaigns and coalitions, we're often the ones trying to support strategy to that end, and holding a kind of abolitionist line, not being kind of purists and shutting down any kind of reform, but really kind of zooming out and seeing if this reform is actually going to get us where we want to be, and learning from past efforts. I think we should mention the prior to 2020, the biggest response to police violence was Ferguson in 2014. And after that, Obama offered a whole suite of reforms, including body cameras. And there's literally, you know, again, no data that shows that that actually had improved or reduced police killings or violence. But what it did do is add millions and millions of more dollars to technology to the police forces. So yeah, thanks.
And I just wanted to add that I pretty much second what everyone's talking about in regards to, I know in our organization on a lower level, we do focus on kind of changing the engagement within our community that we serve. So before we started to kind of partner with our public safety partners, the conversation was very much that they were willing to arrest before actually having any kind of conversation or even knowing, and more so kind of baiting, especially outside of community events and things like that. So when we started to do these, especially our community take back events where we're doing syringe cleanups, the way that we were able to engage with public safety partners is because they didn't want to do it. So when we came with our drug user union of people in active use, it took away the number and put in the person. So when they realized that the people that they were helping clean up were the same people that you were trying to harass 2 days ago, it changes perspective to where now we're involved in these community efforts. And then the conversations are a little bit different. And there's also just fear. I think that's a big issue when I've had these conversations with police chiefs on us getting into their county. A lot of that information is misinformation that I think has been trickled down from the top of just kind of ignorance on drug user health and on people. I think it take away humanity, especially when they're trying to work together. I think the whole concept of a public safety partner is completely missed. And especially now where our center grabbed the model of the living room to where instead of you criminalizing homelessness, and serving evictions in communities, I'd rather you just drop them off at the center and we figure it out. And it like you're saying, Alex, is not the best because the goal is for you to not to support like, oh, I'm glad I don't have to do it, but more so you want to do it. The change of vision is the goal, but baby steps. And definitely what Dr. Jennifer was saying, that it's frustrating because one center in Horry County is not enough, nor is that the goal of the living room for us to be the police department's backup when they don't feel like doing the paperwork. But essentially, we're providing freedom outside of criminal charges that aren't even served. And I can go really deep into the homeless court that I just have deep disdain for. So it's you take the victories where you can, the small victories where you can, to where I know that because you're experiencing homelessness, you're not going to jail. You actually have a safe space. But it's sometimes I can say that it's disheartening when you have these small victories because you see how big the goal is. And sometimes it's hard to want to go to these community events with these police chiefs and hear their thought process and having to always model the correct way and not forget that you represent an organization and say what you really want to say. So definitely it's draining, but little victories for sure.
Okay. So my next question. So in an ideal world, we've dismantled the prison industrial complex. What kind of changes do you think would need to take place to actually achieve quote unquote justice? So what would come after the prison industrial complex?
I would say access to resources, just connection. And I resonate with Dr. Jennifer so much on funding. The thought that in 2022 alone, we distributed over 5,000 kits as one small organization last year before we had any funding. And the amount of stuff under the surface of mental health, untreated chronic diseases, not even having dental, all these things that are underneath that are just, there's no resource whatsoever, in treating the person again. So I think that would be amazing. If it was a perfect world for me to say, wow, you need X, Y, and Z, there is money for you here. There's a resource for you here. You can walk in and you don't need to be polished in with your suit and tie to be treated like a human being. That would be the perfect experience.
And other countries do that. Like, it's not impossible. I think sometimes here it's like, well, it would just take too much. We couldn't ever do that. But no, it's been done. There are models that do this successfully. I think we are just so far behind in thinking. And that's what's keeping us back. I mean, and of course that these issues are systemic, that no matter if people believe you or not, if everyone did believe us and everyone did listen to what we were saying and said, okay, we think this is important, there would still be discrimination in the systems themselves. And so it feels so huge because you literally have to dismantle systems that have been in place forever. And it feels really, really big, but it's like, this is not a new idea. Other places do this where they're able to invest in their communities and provide resources and not overcharge people for things, or just have no funding at all for certain human basic rights necessities. So absolutely, I feel all of that.
And also, hopefully, we're at a place where, not only have we been able to shut down the mass incarceration system and unjust policing in this country, but there's also respect for peoples in the global South, because I think we need to be talking a lot more about the connections between the US mass incarceration and policing systems and the militarization. So, the same way that it's not okay for Black and brown people in this country to be imprisoned and, killed by the police, and, we need to be condemning that. We also should be condemning the fact that the US military is killing Black and brown people in the global South as we speak. And so, I think until we have addressed sort of, demilitarization and sort of imperialist US foreign policy and the connections of that to forced migration, and then the connections of that to, the imprisonment of migrants and mass incarceration, we're not able to truly dismantle the system. So in an ideal world, really, we are treating all human beings with the respect and dignity that they deserve.
Thanks. I can hop in real briefly here. I think that while it's a powerful exercise to envision a world after the prison industrial complex, I don't think it's the most important part of our organizing. I think that often when we're working with decision makers, whether local or statewide, they want us to define and paint a picture and clearly lay out what this world would look like. And I think we should be okay with like Dr. Jennifer is saying, not knowing what it looks like, and at least enough to say what we have now is not working, and have that be kind of the basis for us to move forward and chip away at it. And over 85-90% of folks in jails, like Dr. Jennifer was saying, are there pre-trial, right? There are things we can do, and it should be enough for us to say what's working now is not working. What we have now is not working, and that should be enough for us to keep going.
I think for me, it's hard to imagine a world where these systems don't exist. I would love for my imagination to peak that far, but for as long as I have lived and my ancestors have lived, there have been forms of oppression, and they come in many different shapes and sizes. So for me, I would say I don't know what will be next, what I can say is what we're doing on the way to this collective liberation is trying to build more awareness around other systems that impact our community, such as government. And like really learning how, as people of a certain age, do we bring younger people on to really raise their awareness and show them how to share the knowledge, right? And share the wisdom of what oppression looks like and what it looks like to be your own community and take care of yourself. And I think that that just comes with like political education sessions, community support groups, and just those natural organic conversations that should happen within homes, right? And in families. So I think those are the steps that we can take while we're working to get to that collective liberation of dismantling these systems. But I'm not sure what will be next. I think the first thing would be actually community agreeing on how to keep each other safe, but also hold people accountable who have done harm to other people. That's something that will be very important, right? But we don't have the bandwidth to work on that leading up to, because we have so much pushback from those systems who are trying to dismantle, and they're giving us new assignments every day, and they are really doing people wrong every day. So I think that that has clouded my judgment on what it could look like to have, what we worked so hard to get.
Thank you. And so, see the time now is 7:24. And so what I would like to do in these kind of last couple of minutes is actually turn it to the audience, maybe a question or two from the audience for our extremely great panelists. I don't know if Dr. Perkins, if you can look through the chats and see if someone's asked a question or someone wants to raise their hand.
This is Debbie Perkins. Thank you all so very much. You are doing amazing work in your communities and on the ground. One of the questions I'd like to ask or to put forward so you can talk a little bit about is, I think that, you can get so caught up with doing the work that's needed in your own communities. What are you all doing to build the movement? I know Project South, because I've served on the board of directors many years ago, is all about movement building. So what are you all doing, and what kind of strategies and efforts are you engaged in building that movement, and especially the global movement that has been discussed here?
For me, what we do at Black and Pink and what we do at We Care Tennessee is a national approach, right, to building community and building a network with people, and really raising awareness among each other around what harm reduction looks like and what does it mean to us and what are best practices, right? And also, like, how do we provide this standard or culture of care when we're providing services to people who use drugs and do sex work, people who are incarcerated, right? How do we provide these services in a way that does not feel different when they go to another part, right, of the country? And when it comes to global work, I don't know if we're doing global work, but we have been in contacts with like trans women in Puerto Rico who have groups and who have community. There's been some talks with trans people that are in Jamaica, but those talks are just talks and conversations because we're not the people to do the work for their community. And I think it's really important that we, as people who do this work, build and equip those who are most impacted to use their own voices, and that we practice the practice of not speaking for communities and not taking up too much space, right? Even as a person like myself who's been through so much, at this point I'm privileged and I live a different life. So I may have perspective on what happened in my experience, but my experience is not the most important experience because I am no longer in that position, right? I don't need the help. So I can't put a voice or put a sound to what the need is. That would have to be from somebody who's in that active position. So I think moving myself out of the way is how we come to like a global approach, right? Is for leaders to really move themselves out of the way and continue to equip and enrich those voices from the community.
All right, so maybe one more question from the audience. So I'll just ask then, what's next? Just short 30 seconds. Let us know what's next for each of you and your great organizations, all the great work that you're doing to humanize and rehumanize disenfranchised and marginalized communities.
We had a question as well.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
It's in the group chat.
I'll read it for everyone. If you have an interest in representing a group that necessitates social advocacy, how would you begin searching for avenues to begin working for these organizations? If you have an interest in representing a group that necessitates social advocacy, how would you begin searching for avenues to begin working for these organizations? Or with? I'll rephrase that question because I want you to work with them, not for them.
And can I just follow up with this question, because this is one of my students, and a lot of my students from the social justice class are here tonight. And I think, you know, for many of our students who are just learning more about social justice and learning to experience life, they want to get involved. They see the inequities, they see the injustices, and sometimes it seems so big and so overwhelming. And I think this is where Annabelle's question is coming from. You know, what are your first steps? You recognize the problem, you recognize you need to be part of that solution. Where do you begin when everything seems so big and so overwhelming?
I would say that the first step, which is what I took when I realized there was a need for representation and services in Horry County. And in this space, I would definitely begin figuring out what niche you're looking for. And majority, I just know the majority of the community partners I work with are always looking for, especially young minds, and the drive and the motivation, which is hard because a lot of times when you do this work, you get burnt out very quickly. And there are a lot of organizations that you may not even know that are out there that are doing what you want to do, that you can also learn and then branch off. So I think that finding where your heart is and then finding an organization that aligns with your mission and what you want in regards to social justice, policy change, all that stuff, and connecting, and then figure out where you kind of, where you fit. And then hopefully the organization that you connect with promotes your growth, whether that's within them or whether that's within your own thing. Because that's really how, I mean, you guys are the future of what a lot of us are pushing to do. So I don't see how it wouldn't be supportive of the integration into organizations you're looking for.
I totally agree with that. I also think reach out to the organizations that you are most interested in, most moved by. I have an assignment in my classes where my students in my criminology class need to find a local nonprofit or a local aid organization and do something actively to help them. But I say to them, don't just go do something that you think might be helpful to them, because in fact, you could actually be getting in their way and you could be causing them a lot of extra work by doing things that they don't actually need. So reach out to the organization and ask, what is it that you need? And how can I be of assistance? And sometimes the answer is you can't right now. I don't have any volunteer work that you can do right now or whatever. And so you say, okay, is there another organization that you know of that does similar work that I could reach out to? I mean, you have to do that on the ground work and insert yourself into an area that you're passionate about. Shameless plug. I really need a social media manager for the bail fund. I can't pay you, but you could help if you want. So, put it on your resume.
I would love
Also shameless
to.
plug volunteers as well.
I know, I'm like, we all need volunteers and interns. And I would say, and I see a question, I'm going to answer that one, but I would say also really evaluate why you want to do the work that you are interested in, why it is you want to represent that group, what it is you bring to the table when it comes to privilege, because being an ally is all about leveraging your privilege and your power, and really coming in and using cultural humility as your guide to the work that you will be doing. I'm going to answer this other question because I know we have to get off. Mr. Tasaki, are you trying to end drug use or facilitate rehabilitation to people that want to stop using, as well as promoting and providing safe options for drug use? Yeah, no, our programs are not about ending drug use. Drug use is a continuum, and it goes all the way. It's just like sex, goes from abstinence all the way to frequent chaotic use, and we're here for all those parts and just really trying to encourage safety, right? And having people feel good about themselves when they're using, when they're not, when it's chaotic, when it's a ritual type of use. We just want people to feel good about who they are and provide them a space to show up as their full selves. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like we are a little bit over time, but I want to thank all of our extremely great panelists for their insights, for all the great work they're doing.
Can I just make one announcement very quick? Yeah, just in terms of what's next, we'll just immediately tomorrow at 12:20 p.m. there is a panel hosted by several student groups at Harvard Law School, led by the National Lawyers Guild, focused on the terror of anti-terrorism laws, so how the state is using fear as a tactic to basically go after communities of color and Muslim and Black and Brown communities. And so there are speakers representing various movements, such as the movement to stop Cop City. So I am going to be moderating this panel, so I'd like to put in a plug. Please attend. You can find the information either on my Twitter or Project South Twitter. And so look forward to seeing you all so that we can continue this conversation. And so hopefully together we can dismantle all these systems of repression against our communities.
All right, thank you. And so with that, I want to thank our panelists for taking their time to speak with us regarding how do we work to dismantle the prison industrial complex while also amplifying abolition work. And so this was our event, The Road to Abolition, Dismantling the Prison Industrial Complex, One Step at a Time, as a part of CCU's Ella Baker celebration. So this is the first event. We have a slew of events coming up over the next several days. So please check your emails regarding all of those matters. And so with that said, any final words before we take off?
Thank you for giving us a platform to talk about our work and to answer some of these questions. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you all for having us, and thank you for the work you are going to do, the work you are doing. Thank you to my fellow panelists for bringing your full selves to this panel today. I'm so honored to be on the panel with y'all and hope to see you all soon.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation going, get each other's contact information. So with that being said, Dr. Dane Malone, it's been a pleasure. So hopefully I'll see you all around. Everyone have a nice evening, and thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Take care. Bye.
Danny, you did a great job. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, how many showed up in the
At the
live
peak of it,
watch?
what was it, like 44? You talking about like here, like
No, I'm
in
talking
the
about
Zoom?
live.
Oh, live.
Yeah,
we
with
got-
you.
We got 4.
You have 4.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of food here.
Yeah, okay. So yes, make sure you take the food with you in any way you can, because they will throw that away. So if you have bags or the cups that they provide, fill the cups up with anything and everything that you can, and take it
Oh,
with
they
you.
can hear you.
Yep, get the food. We paid it, it costs a lot for this food, and they're going to throw it away. So please take it with you. Are any of my students in that they're with you now? Ask them if they're
Are
with
y'all in Dr. Perkins' class? No. Oh,
Okay.
Alexia is Foreman.
Okay,
who I know, 'cause I had her last
Alexi, I'm going to
semester.
put you down. Is there anyone else then there besides you,
Not-
Alexi? Okay.
No,
all right.
that's yeah. And so if you
Okay.
haven't signed in, please sign in before you take off. But yeah, so it's 4 students.
Okay.
Dr. Hollis came by, as you saw earlier.
Right, I
Um,
did. Yes.
And then I see my student Karina there. Okay, I see
There's
you.
Karina. Yeah, and I'm trying to. There, I can start my video. Hi, how are you, Karina? Nice to meet you. This is an online class for me, so I don't have the privilege of seeing my students every day. So it's
Oh,
nice
yeah.
to put a face with your name, Karina.
You're on mute. We can't hear you. Or
Well, she doesn't seem like she's moved. She doesn't. It's not showing up as being mute.
nope, still can't.
No,
I can't
okay,
hear
so-
you. Nope. Try to do your computer audio with your laptop or whatever it is. Yeah, Karina's in my criminological theories class, which was today at 3:05 to 4:20. So
You can
nope,
always
still
put it,
can't.
you can always type it in the chat, Karina.
I don't know if they have. I'll be right back.
Okay. Ashana, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry you had problems getting into the to log in to the event tonight.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know. It would just wouldn't let me sign on. I had to like click something to like go online, and then it just started. It just loaded.
Okay, very good. Well, sorry for the confusion, and glad you could make it and join us.
No problem.
Hi, there I see you now. Karina says hi. All right, Danny, Dr.
Yes,
Malone,
I mean, yeah,
okay.
that's all good.
All right,
What's
so Karina is typing away. I think she wants to. Do you want to ask us something, Karina, before I? No. I think that we had, I'm not sure what my audience, not what I was trying to say. I was really
Oh,
wanting to make it
gotcha.
to the live event.
Okay.
My husband went out to no problem. Listen, I was supposed to make it to the live event as well. My dog had a medical emergency today, so I was in the vet all afternoon, and so I didn't make it as well. So I totally understand. Life happens, things happen, and we do the best we can, and we carry on. And we might have a little technical difficulty along the way, but it all panned out, and it was a great panel.
Yeah, and Karina will tell you, like today in class, what did I say? Life be life. See? So it happens. Like,
Yep.
you know, life be life.
And fortunately, we have our friends and colleagues who step in when we're not able to be there, and that's what community is about, right? So
Yeah,
okay.
I was not expecting over remark. I was like, oh, you know, do a couple of questions. Then like, oh no, you're DJing this, you're hosting this. Like, all right. But it's all good.
Oh, good. Okay, well, I'm going to respond to Shauna's last comment there. Okay. And I know you will make a difference. I know all of you will make a difference in the world. You know, that's why you are taking our classes. That's why you are budding sociology and social justice and criminology majors, because you want to be part of the solution for change. So I have no doubt that you will make a positive difference in your world. Okay, I'm going to end this for us. And Danny,
right.
I did record it.
Okay.
So if I can, I will share that with you. And you may want to make it available as long as I don't mess the recording up as I stop this. So.
I mean, as long as y'all have it for was it social justice research?
Yeah, you know, because my students have to write a little paper, so I want to make sure those who were there are able to have access to the recording in case they would like to listen to it again.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much.
This is awesome. Yeah,
okay,
thank y'all.
Appreciate it. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.